Hey, you're listening to Seltzerquest, where we try the best and worst in hard seltzers and offbeat beverages so that you don't have to. We suffer for our art because we believe that suffering is good content. If you like listening to us suffer, or have recommendations for beverages for us to review, email us at holler@seltzerquest.com. Again, that's holler@seltzerquest.com. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and YouTube and follow our social media at instagram.com/seltzerquest. Engage with us through whatever channel you like, because in this robotically driven world, engagement is all that matters. Alright, now that's out of the way, let's do a podcast.
They confirmed they are bowling on behalf of soup, not to receive soup.
I gotcha.
Yes.
Does soup need the...
Soup
I feel
needs
like
help.
Yes.
It does.
I actually believe you, because we were going to do the Campbell's episode, the Soup Tales episode, but they've actually pulled those products.
Yeah. So if soup needs help,
Since
get in on that.
Since they initially put out that cocktail thing, which was only like 3 months ago,
Yep.
they have now pulled all of the products that you could use to make it. So
So good luck.
Yeah, I thought about doing it with off-brands or whatever. The
it's
problem,
just
right?
the same.
Well, okay, so they call for mushroom broth,
Mhm.
pho broth, Thai ginger broth, and pork and I think it's like pork and rosemary broth or something like that.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
Yeah, and I can find mushroom broth, no problem. I can find pho broth, no problem. Cannot find the other two, because those are proprietary flavors that Campbell's was the only company that would run.
And then they
basically.
half-assed it.
Okay, so hello and welcome, listeners, to an episode of Seltzerquest that we've already tried to record once and might end up going on Patreon once we set that up. We're doing liquor laws. We're talking about liquor laws.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I don't even remember the first time we did this.
So we were all intoxicated in various forms and fashion, as we so often are in the show.
Yeah, I started at 3 beers in.
And so unbeknownst to me, Texas has a lot more liquor laws than the other two states that were
There's a lot more
researched.
Texas.
There
There's
is
just
a lot more Texas.
Texas.
There is a lot more Texas, and we're special that way. But I just remember
Alaska is
being like,
laughing at you.
I remember feeling like I was droning on and on.
You were.
And on.
You were. You 100% were.
Because
No,
there is
I
so
didn't mind
much.
it.
Well, you don't, but look at you.
Anyways,
You're wearing
But-
fingerless gloves inside.
Yeah, I can't decide if I'm a goth chick or a Pokemon trainer. Come at me.
And a lovely jacket with palm trees on it.
It is a nice jacket.
Ragstock, baby.
But no, it was quite a mess of an episode. We're back for round 2.
Yeah, we're
going
going to try this here. And so each one of us has chosen a state. We were just going to all go with the states of our origin, but Derek's from Florida, and they don't really have very fun liquor laws there.
Here's kind of basic.
It's just like, they're honestly,
kinda
it's maybe the
cool.
one thing Florida does well.
Don't bring it to the beach unless it's like a certain kind of beach, and you're good.
Or it's in plastic, like it has to be in plastic.
Yeah, or if it's
glass.
if it's a state park, no alcohol. If it is not a state park, you can bring it.
Good.
So anyway, Derek's doing New Jersey instead.
That's pretty much Florida. It's the Florida of the North. I
It
think.
is the Florida. Well,
Well, a lot of New Jerseyans moved to Florida, so
I would argue that Idaho is maybe the Florida of the... Well, no. There's
No.
not enough people in Idaho.
Northeast,
No.
Northeast.
I don't hear about Idaho.
Fair enough.
I feel like I hear a lot of
Idaho.
Jersey stuff happening, but I never hear about Idaho in any infamy.
Maybe it's Ohio. Ohio is the Florida of the North.
Yeah.
I don't think so still, but go off.
I don't know. I
Anyway.
can't see anywhere. Florida is the only other state where I can think of that I could hear about a river catching fire and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
No, I get that for New Jersey too, based off of my in-laws are from Jersey, and sometimes some of the jokes that they crack, I definitely could see it. Like I definitely see how a lot of people who are originally from New Jersey retire in Florida and have created a new culture down there.
That's fair.
So, yeah,
Atlantic City certainly is scuzzy enough.
yeah. So I definitely think that it fits. It fits as a good little swap.
Anyway,
In any
But-
case,
who are we?
yeah, let's introduce ourselves and the state that we will be representing in this discussion about liquor laws. In Chair 1, I'm Merlin. I will be representing Minnesota, the state that we record in and where I'm from. In Chair 2,
It's Derek, and I don't have any particular connection to Jersey other than I think Jersey dudes are hot.
All right, and it's I'm doing Texas, of course, because why the hell not? And I'm just going to apologize in advance. Go ahead and yell at the Texas liquor laws for me, or have a drink or whatever. It's hot garbage in that state.
or don't. Sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might be an unaware bootlegger.
Accidental bootlegging. Oh,
Happens quite frequently. I'm pretty sure that at one point or another that I might have been in trouble for that. However, I might have gotten off on a technicality that I'll explain later.
it sounds like an awkward hazard for bicyclists.
Yeah. I mean, cars will actually try and target bicyclists. In Austin, so Lance Armstrong lived in Austin for a really long time, and he got so annoyed with the car culture there because everything is cars. Everything is car-based. He would pay people to ride their bikes with him and effectively block off the small, like, 2-lane roads, like one lane going one way, one lane going the other way, and he would block off both ways.
What a god.
But the problem is that people, he would slow down if people were trying to pass.
Yep.
So you basically just get stuck behind him for maybe an hour or two. And these were roads where it was like, it's the hill country, so you could fall off of a cliff and die. And people started responding in kind, trying to run him off the road. And it just meant that it was a free-for-all on bikers for a while in Austin.
Oh,
and
geez.
Austin for a long time was like one of the more progressive places in the state. So
Isn't it still?
yeah. Some people are really trying to take it back since that is the state capital.
Yeah, whatever.
There's Greg Abbott who lives in the governor's mansion. Fuck Greg Abbott, but
Yeah, so we can't make credible threats on the air, but let's just say we hope Greg Abbott has a nice time.
Yeah, and by nice, I mean quote unquote nice.
Yeah, no, so I don't necessarily want bad things to happen to anyone, but I would not
Just
shed
less
tears
good
for
things.
him.
Right, that's what we're
Less
saying.
good
is
things.
I
we
would
hope
not
that
shed a tear for him.
we hope that he has a nice time.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a pun here and I'm just not getting it.
I hope someone I really do hope that someday someone can talk some sense into him, but I don't hold out hope.
As Derek, it's not a pun. It is that's a phrase that's used to get around libel laws in the UK, where they're considerably more awful than the libel laws we have here. So basically, just speaking negatively about a public figure on air is potentially libel there.
Yep.
So they say, I hope he has a nice time.
Oh man, that reminds me of that book, Famous Baseball Players Sucks at Crowdfunding. It's basically a book roasting a specific baseball player who is a dick. But basically, in each story, they would say he has a small dick. So if he wanted to fight it in court, he'd have to say, "This is me," right down to the small dick. So it was clearly this person, but like he could never. I forget what baseball player it was, but I can look it up.
I love it.
I know the name of
love
the
it.
book is Famous Baseball Player Sucks at Crowdfunding.
I love it.
All right. So do we want to do these states in order of biggest to smallest?
Or we could go in alphabetical.
I mean, I just feel like Texas should go last.
Yeah, that's the reason why alphabetical.
Okay.
Start out with Merlin, go to Derek, then finish with me.
Sounds good. Minnesota liquor law. And actually, this is probably going to get more interesting as we go along too. Minnesota liquor laws, and while we're talking about this, we're going to be drinking some Keeper's Heart Minnesota Irish style whiskey from a highly hyped distillery in the Twin Cities. Anyway,
I am short pouring, by the way, so that way we don't get absolutely trashed unless you would like a full finger.
oh no, that a short pour is fine for me.
I mean, give me a finger, baby.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sure that's a line you use sometimes.
Not one.
All right.
Can't really.
Anyway,
So this is Keeper's Heart.
as we're sipping on this, it is kind of interesting that we went with a distilled spirit, since Minnesota laws about distilled spirits are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
We don't have a whole lot of weird restrictions on those. Most of our restrictions have to do with beer.
Yep.
Which, for a state with as many breweries as we have, is a little suspect. We have the growler cap, one of the lowest in the nation, and we are the only state, 1 out of 50, since Utah repealed in, I think, 2019. We are the only state where grocery stores aren't allowed to sell beer.
Yeah, that was really jarring to me when I got here. I remember being super confused. Like,
Yep.
where is it?
Yep. And I mean, it was so I'm coming from a state that doesn't allow liquor sales on Sunday, which is why we have beer and wine in the grocery store. Now, it has to be anything under a certain percentage, but like it was just wild. You can get certain seltzers that are under a certain ABV, but that's it. That's ridiculous.
Right. So you can buy. So the alcohol you can buy in grocery stores in the state of Minnesota is anything that is 3.2% or less, which is where it's called the 3-2 law, and it used to be it's a Prohibition era law, basically, and it is the federally mandated maximum for beer sold in grocery stores. Each state has individually raised that maximum for their state, but Minnesota is the last one that sticks with the federal 3.2% rule.
I guess someone has to.
God. There are some interesting ways that I've seen grocery stores get around this. Notably, Target will often have a liquor store that shares a vestibule with the grocery store, so you can just do your grocery shopping, walk out, but not all the way outside, just turn into the liquor store and do your shopping that way. It's totally legal. The Kowalski's near me is even a little bit more brazen than that, where they have their display cases of wine in the grocery store, but you can't actually buy them in the grocery store. You can pick out the wine that you want and then go like around the wall into the liquor store and buy it there.
Yeah, no, it's really weird. Like the Trader
It's petty.
Joe's, the Trader Joe's downtown, like it's literally in the same building.
Yeah.
They have the area where you get your cart in between the rest of the grocery store. It's the weirdest fucking thing. And the other thing that I've noticed is that it actually kind of causes more problems in like quote unquote high crime areas.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
You have it completely separated. Whereas if it's in a regular grocery store, like you can have dedicated staff like just occasionally walk by and you're not gonna get like the highly stolen items. But I mean, it's so stupid and silly, and it leads to like during the destruction times, like it led to things getting broken into and burned down more because it was considered separate. Like, oh, it's not that bad. I just went after the liquor store.
Weirdly, yeah. And people will be like, I'm not going to break into the downtown Target, but I will break into the downtown Target liquor store.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is a thing that happens so many times they have yet to reopen it, and I don't think they ever will.
And it really like hurts the workers.
They tilt at it sometimes. I think they're redesigning the atrium of that Target now, which I suspect is in an effort to make the liquor store workable again. Hard to say.
Guess. It's a weird layout to begin with anyway.
Yeah,
but it's weird. The downtown Target liquor store is kind of redundant anyway, since there's already a liquor store less than a block away.
Which one?
Haskell's.
Oh, okay.
How did I miss that? I lived there.
Yeah,
I literally didn't buy alcohol because I could not find a place to get it. Where was this?
It's in the Medical Arts Building.
I never saw it.
Really? Like it's you know where Hell's Kitchen is?
Yeah.
It's across the street.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my fucking God.
You know that building with the mural with all the notes on it that Prince was often photographed in front of. It's that building.
Yeah. So no, I will say real quick that Haskell's, I've seen the one in St. Paul on Ford.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't look like a liquor store from the outside. I've walked by the Haskell's downtown. It just doesn't really.
Yeah, it doesn't pop.
It doesn't brand in the same way. So I will say that in Derek's defense, because like until I saw their wine sale signs, I was like, what the fuck is that? It says it's a cheese shop and it has some grapes out front, so maybe wine, but like, does it actually have more than wine? The one in St. Paul had like a lot more devoted to like, hey, we're having a cheese sale.
Oh,
Hey,
I
we're
got you.
doing
Okay, the one in
this.
Minneapolis doesn't have the accessory cheese
No,
shop.
it doesn't give a
Okay.
shit.
Yeah,
I'm
it
surprised it's
knows
still
what
there.
it knows what it's there for.
Maybe that's how they don't get robbed every 5 days.
But
It would be a very difficult space to rob, honestly.
yeah. Anyways, just it's so weird, the grocery store thing. And also the growler thing. So
Oh yeah, okay.
here's-
So I was getting to the growler
yeah,
cap.
let's talk about
and it's imperative that we do this episode now because there is a bill that's widely expected to pass in the state Senate. I believe it's already passed the House. That will make this talking point irrelevant. But Minnesota has one of the lowest growler caps in the nation. Most states have it, where craft breweries that produce over a certain amount, or any brewery that produces over a certain amount, cannot sell beer to go in growlers or six packs on site. It's why you can't buy like a 6-pack of Bud in the Anheuser-Busch brewery in St. Louis, right? Minnesota has a growler cap of only 20,000 barrels a year, which is rather low, and it means that craft breweries are impacted, not just macros like what it's supposed to impact. In fairness, there are only 6 breweries that are impacted by the growler cap in Minnesota.
However,
I'm getting there.
yeah.
So Fulton Brewing in downtown Minneapolis, Surly around near the U of M, Summit in St. Paul, Castle Danger in Two Harbors, and Shells in New Ulm are all big enough to be affected by the growler cap. They can't sell beer in growlers, and they can't sell beer on site in 6-packs. There are a couple of other breweries, notably Indeed, that have kept their business small intentionally so that they don't exceed the growler cap, which I believe, Em, is probably where you were going with that.
So no, what I have been told is that, yeah, it's a little bit rough when you shoot it, but what I've been told, because I've asked other breweries, hey, do you know why you don't do growlers here? And that's the refillable, typically brown jugs.
Yep.
Not the crowlers, which is the fat cans that hold like roughly 2 beers.
Those are perfectly legal for anyone to sell.
Yeah, and I was like, but why? And they said, well, because we want to stand in support of everyone else. We hope to get there someday. So it doesn't make sense to offer a product that we hope to one day no longer be able to sell.
Right.
And I mean, because I've asked multiple times at various different places that are quite small, and that's just their pat answer. And, you know, I really like the solidarity.
Yeah, it's good. Notably, this is a restriction that only applies to breweries, not wineries. So cideries, like Minneapolis Cider Company, where I work, they are allowed to sell growlers up to any amount of production.
And I think actually maybe some bars that don't do their own beer are allowed to,
because that's considered that they're not, because they're not making
source,
it. Right, it's a secondary. Yeah, it's like in theory you could buy them at a liquor store.
I mean, no liquor stores do it, but I think like I heard vaguely that maybe Town Hall did it at one point in time, but it's been a long time, and I heard that when I first moved here, and everything was overwhelming at that point. So,
To be honest, I've never been to Town Hall.
Yeah, me neither. But
Wait, where's Town Hall again?
There are several locations, but there's one over near Chicago Ave in South Minneapolis, just the stone's throw from here.
Okay, I'm thinking somewhere different.
So that's Minnesota liquor laws. It's got one of the worst growler caps in the nation. It's the only state that maintains the 3-2 beer law, which prevents anything higher than that being sold in grocery stores. Other than that, the liquor laws here are pretty good. We have liquor, like you can buy liquor on Sundays, and
that's new.
Well, it's relatively new. Yeah,
it's new enough. I remember it happening.
Yeah,
it happened. Surdix jumped the gun and didn't. They chose the wrong time to start selling.
It happened in 2017. Surdix started like a month early after the legislation had passed, before it went into effect, and there was some talk about them being sued by the state or losing their liquor license. That didn't happen. It's too much of a fixture. Like, you can't hit Surdix.
Yeah,
but
they did have to close or something, right?
They had to close for the weekend that it happened. That was the compromise.
I guess that sucks.
I mean, that sucks, but also
They're
one
fine.
weekend.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'd like to bring up is Prohibition and its story in Minnesota.
Oh yeah, Prohibition. Okay, so this is one that I don't have well researched, but I do know that Minnesota was a big hub for bootlegging during Prohibition.
Mhm.
A lot of notables had bases in St. Paul because the city government was complicit, essentially.
Yep.
Al Capone had his base of operations out of St. Paul for a very long time.
And that is actually something that I learned about when I first moved here because it was like, hey, I should learn local history. That's the reason why it's called Crooks Haven.
I did not know that.
Is because of that. And the famous St. Paul caves were also used as part
that's
of their
right.
operation.
The Wabasha Caves.
The one other thing that I wanted to bring up, the historic St. Paul courthouse, the one that I actually ended up getting married in, was
Nice.
where Prohibition was signed into law.
Was it actually?
That is where Prohibition was signed into law. That's what my friend told me when I told him, hey, I'm just going to go down. Like, we're going to the St. Paul courthouse. It's going to be lovely. It's an Art Deco building. And he goes, you know the story there, right? And
Oh, the irony.
so that's at least what he told me. I know it's somehow connected to Prohibition. I should probably have fact checked that before I said that, but it's kind of interesting because there were a lot of people here pushing for it, and then a lot of people very violently went against it.
Oh,
here.
I can imagine. Oh, so actually, speaking of Prohibition, I've got one last little tidbit. Is the second oldest family-owned brewery in the country, and one of the only American breweries to fully survive Prohibition and the doldrums, is in Minnesota. It's Shell's in New Ulm. They're one of the breweries fighting the growler cap. They made it through Prohibition, selling soda and candy, which is why 1919 root beer is called that.
I still don't like root beer.
Yeah,
It's lame. I don't like it.
I do, but
Get fucked if I like
I
it.
definitely understand where the antipathy comes from. Anyway,
Cream soda, on the other hand.
cream soda's pretty good.
Me and cream soda, and we have some good times.
Cream soda's great.
I love the cream.
We got to get you to Lift Bridge.
They call me Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Ew.
I know, that was awful. Take it back. Yep.
We got to get you up to Lift Bridge in Duluth. They're a brewery, but they're better known for their soda.
I've been to Lift. Oh, I haven't been there. I've been to Duluth many times, but never to drink alcohol.
Yeah, they've got really good root beer, and they do a mini donut soda.
Now that's fascinating.
It's pretty good. I've tried it.
I won't say it sounds good. I just think it sounds fascinating. Like, I'll put it in my mouth at least once.
Yeah, it's definitely worth your time.
Yep, actually, okay, hold on. Congress put forth the National Prohibition Act, which provided guidelines for the federal enforcement of prohibition. It was championed by Representative Andrew Volstead of Minnesota,
That's why it's called the Volstead
the chairman
Act. Yep.
of the House Judiciary Committee. And yep, that happened apparently in St. Paul, Minnesota. One of the highest drinking states. Like,
Yeah, it is.
we drink a lot here.
We do, not nearly as much as our neighbors. Which here's a fun fact: if you look at like a map of the top 50 drunkest counties in the
Mhm.
country, there is one in Minnesota.
Yeah,
There's one in each of the Dakotas.
yeah.
There are 6 in Iowa.
hmm
The other 41 are in Wisconsin.
Oh my fuck.
So yeah, it's the upper Midwest. We enjoy our booze.
I mean, what else are we gonna do on a cold winter's night?
That's not going in the recording.
Super in Mario.
Not at all.
Oh, it sucks. It'd be fun if it did. I'm just saying.
All right,
Anyway.
Derek, take it away, New Jersey.
So,
Hold on.
I'm going to drink water. Okay, fine.
And as we talk about New Jersey, because I have some riffing to do on this after Derek's done, we're going to be drinking Laird's Applejack.
So, and it was hard to find something that was actually kind of New Jersey related for alcohol. It was actively annoying.
For reasons Derek will get into.
Yeah, because it's fucking whack there. So, I know we've mentioned I've already done this.
Right.
I don't remember doing it. We had a wild time. But I do want to do something I think I didn't do last time. I got what I like to call the word on the street.
The word on the street.
The word on Reddit as to how locals feel about their liquor laws over in Jersey.
All right.
Fun fact. If you want to get a liquor license just outside of New York City, apparently these guys they paid $75,000
Good God.
for their liquor license just outside NYC. How much do you think it is in Jersey?
$25?
350,000.
What the fuck?
Fuck!
There are people lamenting how they tried to open a bar. They bought the
It
building,
has water in it.
and they didn't know. I'll drink it. Don't worry. They just bought the building, and they were like, "Cool, now let's just get the liquor license. We're good to go." Oops. That's more than the fucking building that they paid for in Jersey.
I believe it.
That was some tangy water.
Because it had Applejack in it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's anecdotally that's what people are saying is happening over there in Jersey. Their laws are just kind of chaotic all across the board. Everything kind of depends on your township. This is very much that area. New York is the same way in some things. The way that like you could live in both a township. You can live in both a township and a town and a city and pay taxes to all three.
New York is Byzantine in every way, good and bad.
Exactly. And New Jersey shares a lot of the same qualities. There's dry towns where you can't even open any establishment that has liquor. You've also got places that have 24-hour liquor. You've got some places where there's really only one restaurant in the entire place that has any liquor whatsoever. It's like everyone's least favorite restaurant, but they have booze.
Yep.
But meanwhile, you'll have chains that can't have it. Because fun fact, in Jersey, any chain, anything owned by a single unit can only have 2 liquor licenses in Jersey. So let's say you have an Applebee's in Jersey. No matter how many Applebee's you build in Jersey, only 2 of them can have liquor.
Applebee's is franchised, right? And
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Okay. I mean, it takes away any reason to go to Applebee's if you can't get your $1
Exactly.
margarita.
There's no point.
No, Bubba will still take, choose a white trash name, Faye Lynn, to Applebee's on a Friday night, and she'll be very happy.
It's actually Reddit notes.
But
In Jersey, though?
Reddit notes that there is
there
a
are
culture.
rednecks in Jersey.
Oh,
yeah.
fair enough.
There is a culture for BYOB in Jersey. So it's not official, it's not legal, but people will flask it, order a Diet Coke, and then put some whiskey in it.
And I'm sure no one cares.
No one's gonna give a shit. You think the wait staff give a shit? No, they don't. They don't give a care.
No, wait. You're telling me that no BYOB is legal.
I don't know about that. I definitely don't think it's legal there.
Interesting, because so I come from a pretty harsh liquor law state as well, but BYOB is still fine.
You can bring your own alcohol to McDonald's. And
I mean, there are
put it in your
places
soda?
that will say, hey, we have a corking fee, or if you would like to. I know a lot of Italian food places will be like, hey, you can bring your own red wine.
I've never heard about that here.
I don't think you can do that here.
I've noticed that, but y'all also don't have the same amount of liquor laws as Texas does.
Yeah, but I didn't hear about it in
True.
Florida either.
But
Florida's
also,
technically pretty chill.
yeah, and y'all are also chill. It's more of probably a Texas thing, but that's just crazy. I mean, I have seen like TikToks and shit about people going up to Dunkin' Donuts or whatever the local coffee place is, and getting a very sugary coffee and then adding a bunch of alcohol to it.
I did have a regular when I worked at Starbucks who would come in with like her mug with with some Baileys in the bottom and ask us to fill it up for her in the morning. We would do it. Perfectly wonderful woman, but maybe had a drinking problem.
Maybe not.
Maybe
that was her 11 p.m.
I mean, also we
Well,
have
could
to
be,
understand, like, night shift and nurses, but mostly
Nurses especially could use a drink.
They don't. Time knows no bounds for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another thing about Jersey, the population of a given jurisdiction determines how many licenses can be there.
Excuse me?
Yeah. So a lot of times you might think I can open up a bar here. Like there's not enough like places to drink here. But if they determine that they don't need any more liquor licenses there based on the population, tough.
So here's my deal, is that what if, like most urban areas, all of the people moved out and it's mostly businesses there? Does that mean that downtown doesn't get anything?
Basically. Though I think those jurisdictions aren't as heavy on it. I feel like if there's money in it, they would not let that be the case.
True.
But there's other smaller towns, areas where it's just like,
You have one,
there's literally one place that has alcohol.
and everyone
it's
goes there.
Like the local shitty taco place. And they just happen to get there first. And nobody likes them, but they have the alcohol, so tough.
Fair.
It's really funny how it literally consistent across this Reddit post in r/New Jersey. People are lamenting, damn, I miss restaurants with bars. Like, that's uncommon. Like, you won't always find that depending on where you live.
Oh my.
Or they just say, go to New York.
That is an unfortunate cop out for a lot of New Jersey. Is hey, you can just go to New York.
It's not that far.
It's easy
You,
enough.
you can drive through it from New York to New York.
I mean,
Right.
it's a particularly wide state. It's not necessarily a tall state.
No, I think you got it the wrong way. It's long north to south. It's not.
Well,
It's kind of a bean. It's like bean shaped.
Let's pull up a picture of Jersey.
yeah, no, I'm probably thinking more of Pennsylvania.
You might be
shape.
thinking of Connecticut.
No, I'm thinking of Pennsylvania shape because I know that my friend
Pennsylvania's like a rectangle.
Yeah,
It's like a box.
yeah, but like it's wider than it is tall.
Yeah,
And
Pennsylvania
that's
is
what I'm
wider than
probably
it is
thinking
long.
of with
Yeah.
New Jersey. New Jersey is just kind of like this nondescript place in my head with terrible roads and people from Jersey Shore.
Oh, it's true.
That's really and Atlantic City, but also the mob and the Pine Barrens. Like that's what I got. from
New Jersey is their roads. Okay, so we're talking about their
everything
liquor
I've
laws.
seen from and everything I've seen from The Sopranos, which I did watch from start to finish
I
during
haven't-
the pandemic.
I've not seen an episode of it.
It's decent. I like
So-
mob stuff though.
The thing about New Jersey, right, is it was where suburbs were invented, and so
Levittown or-
there is a saying among urbanists, which is traffic engineers left to their own devices will inevitably create New Jersey.
Oh, no.
They have at-grade clover leaves in New Jersey.
I don't like that.
Explain that to me. I don't know what that means.
So you know what a clover leaf is,
Yeah,
right?
generally. Yeah.
So it's like a highway. There's an overpass over it, and you swoop onto the overpass or back off it, right?
Yeah.
An at-grade clover leaf, that overpass, same level as the highway.
Okay.
It's just highway crossing highway.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
Wait, no.
they have at-grade clover leaves in New Jersey.
And also like from what I have heard, when you have to like go up an incline or down an incline, it's not necessarily the safest. Like they don't add in extra safety measures and be like, okay, we're going to be a little bit more gentle. It's very sharp and severe. So if you're in a bigger truck, if it's particularly windy that day, you could just go flat on your side.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Texas later in the episode here, which has its own sort of psychotic car culture. But
That's a whole separate podcast.
at least Texas has some level of highway planning. New Jersey does not seem to have any.
Yeah.
They've got some of the most dangerous and creatively designed roads in the country.
Yep.
Yeah. So, as gross as I find the Katy ziggurat, I'd be more scared to drive in New Jersey than Texas.
Yeah, I mean, Texas, you just have to know that people are aggressive. They will still wave to you when you let them over, but you might have to force your way over. It's fine. You know what people are going to do. Just assume everyone's aggressive.
Yeah.
But Jersey, I mean, it might make more sense now that Jersey is terrible with alcohol because they don't want a bunch of drunk drivers.
Well,
it's dangerous
that brings
enough
me to
driving
my next,
sober.
That brings me to my next point on Jersey. It is the only state where a DUI is a traffic offense, not a crime. Like not a
Nice segue.
I know what I'm about.
Yeah, it is. It is not considered the same level of offense. It is not even a misdemeanor. It's just like a traffic violation.
Interesting.
So who knows what any of this means?
Nothing. It means
Just drive
nothing.
through Jersey drunk off your ass. You're fine. That's what it tells me.
Please don't.
But don't, because that's a dumb. But legally speaking,
It's not as bad. Like kind
Exactly.
of like how
it
Louisiana
won't ruin your life.
Like kind of how Louisiana refused to make the drinking age 21 for a long time, so the feds had to withhold highway funding from them in order to get them to enforce it.
What? That's okay.
Like it's kind of on that par to me.
But why though? Why
That's-
didn't Louisiana want to? Is it because underage drinking is
it
profitable
wasn't
there?
even considered underage.
I mean, yeah, it was then.
That gets into like a whole cultural thing in the South, and also specifically Louisiana. Louisiana is very pro drinking and showing young people how to drink responsibly. And it's
Basically
it's a
acknowledging they're
lot
going to
of-
do
there-
it,
there are
so
a
let's
lot
get
of-
them to
there
do
are
it
a lot
right.
of the Cajuns are descended from the Acadians, who were pushed out of French Canada.
Yeah,
when the
notably
British took
the
over.
Canadian Acadians, not the Middle Eastern Acadians.
Yeah, sorry, the Canadian. But they became the Cajuns, and the other folks who came into that section of Louisiana were primarily either indigenous folks or Hispanic folks, or specifically, I think, from Mexico, or they were enslaved folks. So there was a much like everyone drank. It wasn't.
How else are they
even
going to get through it?
Yeah, it wasn't even a so much of a question as a okay, so what kind? And they did not want people turning 18 able to vote, able to go fight in the military, and not able to drink, because it was very much part of their culture.
That kind of makes sense, though.
Yeah, it does.
I feel like that just
But
makes
it gets
sense.
it gets into a whole thing, and the federal laws, they couldn't really make a federal law about it again, but they could withhold funding to force the state law.
And so that actually set a precedent. Louisiana's not the only state where that's happened. I know off the top of my head, Nebraska and Wisconsin had similar things going
Yeah.
on. And so that's just sort of the precedent that Louisiana set, which is states are free to set whatever drinking age they want. But if it's not 21,
it's the 10th Amendment.
yeah, if it's not 21, US DOT gets to withhold federal funding for their highways.
And Louisiana was like the last holdout that's the reason why their highways still haven't fully recovered.
I mean, Katrina didn't help either.
No, but like
Also,
this was
just generally
pre-Katrina.
being the most corrupt state in the union if you only look like north of New Orleans.
That's everywhere.
No, I'm saying the northern part of Louisiana is like the most corrupt part of the country.
Yeah.
And not
I also
by a
hear-
small margin
I
either.
hear
But-
infrastructure-wise, they've got buildings that collapsed years ago and are still there, collapsed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't have the funding. It's a poor state. It's a poor southern state.
Yeah, so anyway, vote for Gary Chambers if you live in Louisiana.
Yeah, go Gary Chambers. This is I guess an unofficial but slightly official Seltzerquest endorsement. We like Gary
Yeah.
Chambers.
Well, you know what? I'll make it an official Seltzerquest endorsement. Why not?
Most games are pretty good.
This is a pro Gary Chambers podcast.
I
Pro Gary.
will tag him in the social media post.
Excellent.
But no, getting back to New Jersey, just it seems wild. Do they have state-run liquor stores, or like what's that about?
I don't think they're state-run, no. But they
But
are.
it's hard to get them.
It's really hard to get them. Basically, at this point, if you're not established, good luck. If you're not established, or you don't get a deal from someone who already has the license and wants to give it to you,
Yeah, so like basically back in the day, you had to know the mob.
Speaking of being grandfathered in, this brings me to the spirit that we're drinking from New Jersey, which is Laird's
it's
Applejack. Now, Laird's Applejack is the oldest distilled beverage in the country. It was founded in the 17th century, which is well prior to American independence. So it's founded in New Jersey Colony. And as a result, it has been grandfathered in through every single liquor law that the country has ever seen.
Now,
Notably, even Prohibition.
Now, can I pretty please read the text on the front of the OG Applejack?
Yes, please do.
All right. Laird and Company. Laird's Applejack was first made by William Laird in Monmouth, New Jersey in 1698. Around 1760, George Washington discovered this unique beverage and asked for and received the Laird family recipe, and soon introduced Applejack to the Virginia colony. And I did see a little bit more about it online, but oh my. So I just turned the bottle over, and it says this is the pandemic edition.
This it came with a bottle collar, which is here you go if you want.
All right. So introducing our hopefully very limited pandemic edition, it was either empty shelves or this temporary package. And we know that you would not want to run out of your beloved Applejack. So please bear with us until our supply chain issues are resolved. Oh my lord.
Here's my deal with the Pandemic Edition. This is sort of a tangent. Like, it has nothing to do with the Applejack itself, but I don't know what the fuck they're talking about because
It looks the same.
Certix, where I got this, had pre-pandemic Applejack as well. Same bottle. Just the label is the only thing that's different.
Yeah. I'm thinking that maybe they couldn't get to their printer or something happened, but like it's very different. I think this is just like a capitalist ploy. And also, can I just say, I've had apple-based liquors before, like actual 40%,
Yeah.
which this one is. It's really rough on the
You know why
throat.
this one's so you know why this one's so rough? Do you want to know why this one's so rough?
Why?
So I bought the basic Laird's Applejack instead of the bottled and bond specifically because and incidentally this is going to be important for the New Jersey part of this too. 35% finest apple brandy distilled by Laird and Company, North Garden, Virginia. Okay? 65% grain neutral spirits.
Yeah, no, I've had apple everything. Okay, I have an issue with this because I've had apple moonshine before and that tasted better.
Yeah.
I mean, Laird's. So like I would like to see what the original recipe is without all of the extra stuff cutting it, but
Right. So this is an Applejack, and in fact, Applejack is no longer made, really. There might be someone who still makes it, but the reason I say it's no longer made is because Applejack. This isn't a legal distinction. This is just me being pedantic. But if you're going to call something Applejack, it should be distilled by ice distillation or jacking. This is pot distilled.
Explain jacking.
So jacking or ice distillation is it's a very old-fashioned form of distillation whereby you brew a cider, basically. This can be done with beers too. If you've ever heard of an ice bock, that is ice distilled to a point. And so the way that Applejack used to be made, and the reason it's called Applejack, is basically you would brew the cider, and then you would put it outside in the cold, and it would form a layer of ice on top. You'd take the ice off, and the resulting fluid underneath would have a higher alcohol content because alcohol doesn't freeze until a ridiculously low temperature, which is, I mean, it happens on Earth, but only in Antarctica. And so your resulting product would have a higher alcohol percentage, and you could just repeat that, skimming more and more ice off the top, right? And that's ice distillation or jacking. Nobody does this anymore except to make ice bock beer because it is it's a really time-consuming process, and it just makes more sense to distill your spirit. So that's my pedantry about it not being Applejack. But okay, it's an apple spirit, fine. Except only a third of it's an apple spirit. It's 65% grain neutral spirits, and it's not even made in New Jersey anymore.
But it says on the thing.
It's made in Virginia.
But it says on the thing. Scobiaville.
So
that's where it's bottled.
Okay.
Yep. So that's a whole other thing. It says it's from North Garden, Virginia. And so in preparation for this, Merlin and I were having a hell of a time trying to find a New Jersey beer. And I said, screw it, let's look for the spirits. And Laird's popped up and I was like, that's a familiar name. And it said Laird's Vodka, fully made in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Because there was a law passed that went into effect in 2013 that said you could start distilling in New Jersey. So you could not even have a distillery until 2013 legally.
Why does a state exist?
It's essentially an accessory state to New York at this point.
It's a more conservative. It's where all the Catholic conservatives went.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean you have a handful of them on Staten Island, and the rest of them are in New Jersey.
Yep.
What is Snooki?
Snooki is a celebrity
from Jersey Shore.
She's a socialite.
And apparently they're gonna have like a reboot or something of Jersey Shore.
Oh, I can't wait for this. They're all like
the
40.
situation with the situation and Snooki and all of that shit. So it's gonna be very, very interesting.
Guido's in their 40s. Exactly the show I want to see. Unironically.
So, also, intrusive thought. What about Apple Jacks?
Oh, I actually have Apple Jacks.
They have Apple Jacks.
I'm not sure why Apple Jacks are called that.
Yeah, I really don't know. I've always wondered. I mean, the Apple part makes sense.
Probably based off of when they were created, kind of a riff off of that, and like Cracker Jacks, Apple Jacks.
Oh, I see where you're coming from.
Kind of thing. But
so, in order to alleviate us of the aftertaste of that harsh Applejack, which is only 35% Applejack, I also bought Laird's 10th generation, which is called an apple brandy, much more honest branding.
And I'm okay with an apple brandy.
Yeah.
I like Calvados.
Yeah, that's fine. And this is also produced in Virginia, but it's apple brandy. It's bottled in bond, so it's 50% ABV, and it's all apples.
Now, what I will say is, being here in Minnesota, I have become very, very spoiled with the amount of apples here, because apples were always like my fruit that I had to eat every day. I have actually gotten a little bit cranky until I got my apple in a given day, because
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's part of my morning routine.
You must never have seen a doctor.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So
I wish I had that kind of fortitude. I can never do that.
So I really love apples. I love all kinds of apples. I get upset when I can't have them. And moving up here has been great, because not only is there apples, but there's apple cider, apple liquor. It's apple everywhere.
I don't know. You probably know this already, but the U of M invented like most of the apples grown in the U.S.
I go to the state fair exclusively for the apple section, basically, and the beer.
So,
but mostly the apple section.
Oh, the beer was so anemic last year.
Yeah. So my first one, 2019, like they had a great beer selection, and I took photos of the beers and the breweries.
It's the first time I ever got drunk at the fair was 2019.
Yeah, and you were probably there like roughly the same time I was, given our schedules. But like a couple of months back, I went and looked up the breweries from the photos that I had taken that we had sampled, and most of them had closed, and because of the pandemic. It made me really sad.
That's hot.
But back to New Jersey and Applejack.
Yeah.
So the apple brandy, the 10th gen, it's smoother. I can definitely tell it's brandy. I'm not really getting much in the way of apples from it.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit, but that might just be the brandy character of it.
I hate it. Can I just say that? Can I say I hate it?
You can say that.
Yeah, I don't like it. It made me feel bad.
Yeah, I'm gutting through this slowly, because like the first Applejack taste was not pleasant, and
yeah,
I will say I'm sick. I'm so fucking sick of apples. Like, over it.
I mean,
I'll
part
have
of
all
me
your apples for you.
I worked on an orchard for like a year.
Oh, fair.
Part of me wanted to bring the Tattersall apple brandy just to flex on New Jersey.
They don't. They're fine. It's fine. No one in New Jersey likes being there, from what I've read. So.
It's an entire state that's a suburb of New York.
Yeah, it's a bit much. I'm glad I'm not the only one that was like.
It was harsh. I couldn't finish
finished
it,
but I could have not, and I would have been fine.
I mean, that one was honestly smoother than the Applejack, but it's kind of like the regular one. Slightly reminded me of just this side of Everclear. I mean,
because it is just that side of Everclear.
It's not good. It burns, and I've shot Everclear before. This was not okay.
So let's talk about liquor laws in Texas.
What the fuck's in Texas? I don't like Texas.
So
sounds kind of gay to me.
So
it's a province in northern Mexico.
Brief history of Texas. It has had 6 flags flown over it. That's the reason why we have the chain Six Flags, which was originally based in Texas.
Oh no!
Here's a fun fact.
Yep. Oh no!
There is also a Six Flags in New Jersey, which was most of the roller coasters for which were made in a steel mill in Minneapolis, which is now Minneapolis Cider Company.
Oh, also
it's an interesting through line.
You know where else has a Six Flags? Here.
What do you
mean? So Six Flags
is Valley Fair owned by Six Flags?
Now it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. If you look, they have a Six Flags logo on it.
Six Flags started. So Six Flags, the one I'm aware of, started Fiesta, Texas,
Right.
in San Antonio, and it is lovely. That's the one I grew up going to. Then they opened up the one in Arlington, which is in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Virginia.
No, it's a very different Arlington. And then they started buying up places elsewhere.
They basically buy up theme parks and then put their name on it.
Yeah,
That's how they win.
and because they're really good at like the McDonald'sization.
Yeah.
Sure.
Shtick.
Great America, Great Adventure.
But
Yeah.
So
Valley Fair.
Texas. Texas originally started out as part of Spain. France fought over it for a little bit. Then when
Vive la France.
Mexico, actually that's really funny. LaSalle.
Oh yeah.
LaSalle died in Texas.
Yeah, he did do.
And when I first moved up here and I saw LaSalle Street, it was like, what the fuck is LaSalle doing up here? Because we have like an extensive Texas history curriculum that every Texas public school kid has to go through.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I lived in Central Texas when I was a kid, so I went to like the Alamo a whole bunch. It's wild to me that some people in Texas have only been once. I've been like well over 10 times. It's really cool.
To be fair, a lot of people in places that have big landmarks never go there. Like most New Yorkers never been to Liberty Island.
So actually,
I didn't go until I was 17. I've been there like 3 times total.
So in fourth grade, when you're 9 years old, almost every single freaking public elementary school goes to the Alamo. And even if you have to stay overnight in San Antonio, that's what you do. So like, I mean, even my partner went, and he was in private school, so for elementary. So like everyone went to the Alamo.
Remember where Davy Crockett died?
Yeah, that's where Davy Crockett died. That's where Jim Bowie died. Actually, you say Bowie like Bowie, and Bowie is a mispronunciation.
I'm gonna keep saying Bowie. Because it reminds me of the other guy.
That's pretty cool.
The Bowie knife is actually named after Jim Bowie. William Barrett Travis.
I know that consciously, but I will continue to think it's named after David Bowie for some reason.
Because he's so hot.
That's okay. But Texas has a very long history. It was known as the place where drunken riffraff went. It likes its alcohol. However, it is somewhat part of the South. So the Southern Baptist Convention, the SBC, is very strong there. And it has resulted in some fucking craziness in the liquor laws. Now, as with everywhere else, it participated in Prohibition. We got rid of all alcohol. But post-Prohibition, we passed what is known as blue laws. Now.
Oh, blue laws.
They're taking a drink.
So
we got rid of our last blue law in Minnesota in 2017.
Blue laws are still well and alive in Texas.
It was the liquor on Sunday, yeah.
So blue laws are still well and alive in Texas.
What's a blue law?
Blue law is it's basically restricting alcohol sales.
Okay.
What's
the nomenclature about?
Honestly, I don't know.
Like, why is it got to be blue?
I mean, I always equated it with, sailors tearing a blue streak. That expression.
Drink your water, goddammit. I just did this a second time.
Honestly, he might need that because he's not feeling great. Anyways, so what Merlin is pouring is Devil's River. It is based out of, I believe, Dripping Springs. Yes, Dripping. Oh, no, Dallas, Texas. Okay. I first had it in Dripping Springs. Devil's River rye whiskey. It's delicious. It's probably one of the best ryes I've ever had. The Texas alcohol scene is really blossoming and blooming in spite of all the craziness you're about to hear. Now, the craziness, some of it has changed dramatically since the pandemic started. But when I first became of age to drink alcohol in the state of Texas, here's the state of things. You could not have liquor on Sundays. Specifically.
What do you do on Sundays to have fun?
You could have liquor. So before 12 o'clock noon, in order to drink anything with alcohol, beer, wine, spirits. You had to have food on the table. That's the reason why Mexican restaurants are especially popular, because they would have chips and salsa out on the table. And as soon as you have chips and salsa out on the table, you can start doing your tequila shots after mass. That's actually something my family did, is tequila shots after mass.
Hey, after mass, you need a tequila shot.
Now,
Mass what?
Religious ceremony.
Oh,
Roman
I was like
Catholic
mass
Roman
shooting?
Catholic church service.
Okay.
Yeah. So the
That
other
was really
thing
dumb.
is that it is illegal to sell anything over 17% alcohol anywhere on Sunday. So you can't.
You can't even have a strong wine.
Technically, you can't actually do shots. It's kind of not necessarily like.
Jello shots.
Yeah, you could definitely do Jello shots, but
Is it one of those things that's like de facto but not enforced? Or
it's one of those where it's a little bit gray, so that way restaurants can still sell shots, because
gotcha.
no one's gonna mess with anyone celebrating football or whatever.
Yep.
Or baseball. Because you have the fall and you have the springtime sports, because sports are big there.
It's a sports ball thing. Totally.
Yeah. But in grocery stores,
sports, yes.
But in grocery stores, you can actually, this was a recent update, you can sell a little bit earlier in the day on Sundays. You can actually start selling a little bit before noon. Before, you had to wait until 12 p.m. to sell wine or beer on Sundays at grocery stores. But grocery stores have to have everything that is 17% and under, and it cannot be a liquor. Even if it's like one of those syrupy, sugary, mostly sugar water liquors,
Right.
if it says spirit on it, you cannot sell it in a grocery store.
No
So
triple
you
sec on
can't-
Sundays.
You cannot sell triple sec. You cannot sell grenadine.
Grenadine doesn't have any alcohol in it, usually.
So some brands do,
Okay.
but like you can't sell them.
Wow.
Yep. You have to, I think bitters aren't included,
Bitters are a weird exception to a lot of liquor laws,
but
because
I'm
you're not
100%
supposed to
certain.
drink them. You know,
Like an accessory,
like
like
in
a
theory,
condiment.
in theory, I think you can serve bitters to children because you're not supposed to drink a ton of them. Like you just have a.
Yeah, it's a drop. But so Texas blue laws started in 1935, post-Prohibition. Actually, so that's the funny thing. Depression started at the same time as the post-Prohibition laws started in Texas.
Sort of. Wait, hold on now. That
Yeah. So
almost tracks.
So the Depression took a little bit to actually get to Texas
Oh,
and
okay.
to some of the rural South. I mean, the cities felt
Are we
it
talking
a little bit more.
Are we talking Dust Bowl then?
No, I mean the actual effects. Like, not as many people in the South had stocks
I gotcha.
and stuff like that. So it took a little bit for the stocks that they did have, which were probably based in their local companies, to actually fall through
Sure.
in that weird domino effect, because things were a little bit slower back then. But so around the same time that you could start drinking again was the same time that you could actually feel the effects of the Great Depression. It was great.
Great time to drink.
Now, Texas blue
You can
laws
afford it.
are particularly egregious. Because of the pandemic, they actually allowed to go alcohol sales from restaurants because people weren't going out to eat anymore. People were at home. So they said, hey, you can have it. It has to be sealed up in a certain way. So that was actually something that was temporary, that was made permanent starting September 1st, 2021.
It's better than what we got. We don't.
They also allowed an exception for hotel bars to sell alcohol at any time, but only to registered guests. So if you're a registered guest at a hotel that has a bar that is currently open at 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning, you can still drink as much as you goddamn well please.
Note to self:
Go stay at a hotel. in
if you
Texas.
ever go to Texas,
check into a hotel,
check
drink.
into a hotel with a bar.
Stay at like an Embassy Suites or one of the Hyatt Business Inns or whatever.
Hyatt
Yeah.
place. Yep.
Anyways, so anyone from 18 and up can bartend, and 16 and up can sell beer and wine in retail environments. That means you can technically have
Oh my!
16-year-old cashiers at a grocery store, because we allow grocery store alcohol.
Right.
But they cannot touch spirits, which is, I mean, it works out.
Yeah.
Now, the biggest thing to note about Texas, we have our own alcohol police. We have the
I remember you
we
saying
have
something about
TABC,
this.
Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission, or Tobacco Alcohol Beverage Commission.
Liquor
I always go with
cops.
Texas because it's liquor and tobacco cops. I actually had a stepmother who was part of TABC. She was terrible. And everyone who I met at that very young age, I didn't really trust. And I was only like 5 and 6 years old. I was just like, y'all are weird. I don't like you.
Liquor cops. And that, god damn.
So we do
How
have
much must you
special-
have to hate fun?
Yeah, so we have liquor cops, we have tobacco cops. People in Texas are generally pretty open. They were one of the last states to make the tobacco a 21 and up thing. Like the last state. I grew up going
Is that a
to
nationwide thing now?
almost nationwide, if not nationwide.
'Cause I know Minneapolis was like an early adopter of that,
Yeah.
but I didn't. Wow.
Like I could go in at 18 years old to a freaking grocery store and grab whatever the hell tobacco I wanted. Honestly, that's the reason why most people started smoking at about, 15.
Oh, jeez.
Because you didn't have to card anyone who looked over 25.
Oh,
For
wow.
For tobacco.
Oh, I could have started smoking when I was like 13 in
Yep.
Texas.
Me too. But here's the deal is that I have like an actual list, but it's like something like 74 of the 254 counties in Texas. You cannot consume alcohol in them unless you are at your private residence. They are completely dry. Most of the counties in Texas are just what is considered moist. So they still have heavy alcohol regulations. Like you might not be able to buy liquor or you might not be able to buy over a certain quantity. But it's absolutely crazy balls. And because of that, bootlegging is actually a crime that they can prosecute you for. And sometimes that's the only crime when they do search warrants that they can actually pin you on. So bootlegging in dry counties in Texas, if you have over 24 cans, and that's a 12-ounce can of beer, if you have over 24 of those cans, or you have over 1 quart of spirits, you are considered bootlegging in dry counties in Texas.
My God, I would be a turbo felon.
Yep. So that is sometimes the only thing that TABC gets you for that cops will get you for. And what's great is cops can basically do anything they want if they think that you have consumed alcohol. So public intoxication is actually considered a misdemeanor crime in Texas.
Like reverse New
If
Jersey.
I believe it's a ticket. You can get ticketed for being considered drunk. Why? Because they don't actually have to do a breathalyzer on you at all. They don't even have to do a field sobriety test. And the way Texas hosts field sobriety tests, 30% of sober people fail them.
You're just uncoordinated.
Yep. So 30% of completely sober people fail field sobriety tests. Lawyers will tell you never consent to a field sobriety test. You can refuse whatever field sobriety test you are asked to take. However, they might bring you in to do a blood alcohol test. Now, if they do that and you still refuse, because Texas has a right of refusal state, except for certain weekends that are passed by the state legislature, like Memorial Day, Labor Day, 4th of July. Those are
Is this
always
a dystopia?
Yeah. So they can test your blood alcohol concentration without your permission on specific weekends. They are considered no refusal weekends.
Why do people live here?
Yeah, I know, right?
Why do they live
And
there?
it's also 120 degrees in the summer. But they can
I'm okay
also
with that.
do
Just,
that.
like, you are never allowed to have fun.
But here's the deal. If you refuse one of those, you are only allowed to refuse them one time within 5 years. If you refuse it again within 5 years, you can get your license suspended.
Okay. No, this is not.
Yep.
It's not okay.
So actually, it's a thing. People will try and figure out in bars who the cops are if they're undercover, so that way they don't get a PI. In most college towns, they only go after like the super, super drunk people, or bartenders have been like, I have seen bartenders hide people in the back who are probably would get tagged for PI because it can still go back against the business as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. There are only, it's it takes so many hoops to jump through to get a liquor license in Texas. That's the reason why we have such a strong BYOB culture that is actually like blessed by law. You can go into quite a few restaurants with your own bottle of wine. Most of the time, not spirits, but they'll allow beer and wine. And it's a thing. They'll say it on their menus.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So you don't have to be actually tested to get a PI violation. It's a pretty big fine, and it goes on your permanent record.
So if I act like a dumbass in public, I'd die immediately.
Yeah, so if they could in any way, shape, or form think or say that you were acting out of the norm.
You don't know what my norm is, bitch.
So that's the reason why the people who are very kind of crazy and whatever, they tend to stick to certain bars. And it helps them out because then they don't look as out of place, which means that the bars are very divided by people.
The flip side of that is I could be on the verge of blacking out and probably be considered fine.
Yep.
I,
But it's a misdemeanor, and the cop needs absolutely no physical proof that you're actually intoxicated.
So he could just hate you and just be like, hey, I'm going to give you this.
And that's the thing. I have actually been I was once approached by a cop because I was studying in my library, and I was loopy because I had been up for 42 hours straight at that point. He goes, "Hey, are you okay? Are you drinking?" And I said, "No, I'm drinking coffee." And he goes, "Let me smell that coffee." And he smelled the coffee, and he smelled just only coffee. And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. What's up with you?" And I said, "I've been up for 42 hours straight because I just worked 2 jobs, and I'm about to go take my final exam before I walk the stage." And he goes, "Oh, dude, I'm sorry." So, and I was literally sitting by myself in a library.
well, that's a very relatable point, too, because
Yeah.
I have been in almost exactly that situation.
Like in a state of delirium. So
Yeah.
people it can really mess with your life. Now I got lucky because it was just the library security guard, and he was trying to figure out whether or not he needed to call the cops, because we did actually have quite a few people partying in the library.
Right.
But it can really get to you. They also have a separate charge if you are boating while intoxicated. Most states just wrap boating while intoxicated under DWIs, but we actually have our own special BWI.
And I think we actually have that here,
We
too.
do know
Yeah.
that for a fact, actually.
And it's still a 0.08% or more. All DWI and BWI have penalties, but judges get to choose exactly how they punish you. There still is like some mandatory minimum type things if you've had enough of them, but judges get to choose. Also, it should be noted that justices of the peace in Texas, which can act as judges, are elected positions.
Ugh.
I was very confused when I got here, and I was like, where are your JPs? You don't have any.
What's a JP?
Justice of the
Oh,
peace.
Justice of the Peace. Gotcha.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell? But anyways, they also, in addition to everything else, they have product label and registration stuff in Texas. So that means that if you're a brewery and you submit something with a lewd name in the title, you can get told that your stuff is not suitable for grocery store shelves. That's actually something that one of my favorite breweries, Brash Brewing, went through, because they have a beer, it's an IPA called Pussy Wagon.
Oh, yeah.
And they
I
have
remember you
Pussy
talking about
Wagon,
this.
Double Pussy Wagon, Triple Pussy Wagon, and also Quadruple Pussy Wagon, where it's a quad IPA.
That's 4 pussies. That's way too many.
That is too many pussies. Like, I say
and
this as
it's
someone who generally
literally-
likes them.
And it's literally their logo for that beer is a kitten in a wagon, right? So
We know what you're trying to get
know
over
what they're
on us
trying
with
to
that kitty.
do. They know what they're trying to do. They also have one called Black Mass, and it's a Russian Imperial Stout. And whenever they release a new line, they'll hold a Black Mass with the Satanic Temple or whatever. But like, they aren't allowed to sell their beer in grocery stores because of TABC saying no. But it's
What are they, my
absolutely
mob?
bonkers. It's kind of the Wild West. However, the craft beer scene is very alive and well. You can go to anywhere and get growlers.
Yes.
The craft distilling scene, like we are currently sipping on Devil's River. It's not easy, but if you're determined, you can do whatever alcohol things you want there.
I
It's a
actually-
little bit wild.
I listened to a beer podcast out of Austin, the Beerists, and I follow a whiskey channel on YouTube out of Austin called the Whiskey Tribe. So like most of what I know about Texas alcohol culture is that it at least it comes off as very open in those in that media.
Yeah,
but
I mean, like, people drink a fair bit. I mean, every
I
single
just wa- I
tailgate,
like-
but like at
how does that
tailgates-
square with?
So they're better at hiding it. Like most of those like hidden flask things or whatever. I know how to hide alcohol because I grew up in Texas. You know how to hide alcohol. You're not putting it in your cup beforehand.
I mean,
You have it in a miniature flask that looks like a tampon in your purse, and that's what you have filled up with whatever your liquor of choice is, and then you pour it into it while no one is looking
God,
at
I was
you.
just
I mean,
complaining about the
like-
crowler cap.
think about cannabis culture. I mean, it's the same thing.
It's
Not legal, but
also
so many people do it.
very prevalent in Texas. Like
Yeah.
everyone knows what your glass shops are for, but
they can't. They won't.
yeah, that's
like
true.
if you mention marijuana in a glass shop, it will get shut down immediately. But no, and it's just it's one of those things where the drinking culture is somewhat prevalent. It's something that bothers me because it's not as much done in moderation. There's a lot more binging going on.
sure.
Because it's that frankly has become part of the culture. But
Well, I feel like those laws kind of
yeah.
encourage that.
Yeah, they really do.
So,
And
like, I
drinking
guess-
at home, but like I mean, for all of this, like it's important to remember people are still drinking. I mean, the famous joke of, how do you make sure a Baptist doesn't drink all your beer on a fishing trip? You invite another Baptist. So like people kind of check each other and all of that stuff. It's a weird culture of like allowing people to get messed up, but at the same time they have to be certain kinds of people and they can't be women.
Right. It's the same thing as like I know we're talking about liquor laws, but it's like public nudity laws in this state. In the city of Minneapolis, it's pretty good.
You take your dick out, it's fine.
Yeah, you can straight up be naked. If you're in Minneapolis, you can just straight up be naked as long as you're not being lewd. You won't
I'm
get
sorry, what?
Yeah, absolutely. But in the state at large, the state law is extremely vaguely worded so as to basically allow the authorities to just do whatever.
Yeah, and since we do have a separate like the Alcohol Beverage Commission in Texas, I mean, they are certified peace officers. They are considered law enforcement. They can make arrests and they have holding cells.
Jeez.
They get police officers retirement and they have their own police officers union. So that's what I say. It's very different. It's crazy. Texas has some really fucking great alcohol, but it has a whole lot of restrictions. Actually, so the reason
It's interesting that there has managed to be, because like I've never been to Texas, but
Yeah.
I do recognize the Texas alcohol scene as like being pretty good.
Oh yeah.
And it's just wild to me that that's managed to metastasize in that environment.
So that's the thing to know about Texas and Texans, and maybe it'll, provide a little bit more light on who I am as a person. The heat makes us angry and it makes us passionate about what we decide we are passionate about.
Fair enough.
We fight for what we want to fight for. And it is also important at this time to note that the way gerrymandering is in the state of Texas has basically stripped a lot of the people who are for alcohol, who are for other products, who are for personal rights and liberties of people like who have uteruses, who have all of like uteri, thank you, who are gay, who are trans. All those people are being stripped of their rights because they are being broken into small, tiny districts. Like there is a district that goes from the border all the way up
I know.
to
I've
San
seen
Antonio in a squiggly line.
I've seen the
which-
maps.
San Antonio is a 3-hour drive away, and I feel like it's important at this time to note that Texas has 70 to 80 mile an hour speed limits on highways. So,
Yes, Minneapolis is weird about that. If you want to talk about other non-liquor related laws that I hate about this place,
like really slow speed
I go
limits.
from Chicago to here, and it's like I hit Minneapolis's borders, and I'm like, fuck, I'm not going anywhere.
Well, Minnesota has a pretty low state speed limit, and Minneapolis is even lower. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things where like, but specifically about Texas, We will.
Texas has the highest speed limit in the nation.
We will find a way. I mean, actually,
I believe it is the only state where 90 miles per hour is allowed on some stretches of road.
I did not know that 90 was allowed.
It might be 85.
I
but
wanna say
So I've seen 85.
It is the only. Okay, 85. It must be 85. It's the only state in the union where 85 is allowed.
So, and that's the other thing, though, that I do want to say.
Since Montana, I think.
Because of the way that Texas liquor laws are written, if you are doing scientific research, sometimes you can skirt those, which is how back in the early aughts, they learned that you could grow grapes for wine in Texas. Now, I do want to put a caveat
Okay, wait,
here.
hold on now.
I do want to put a caveat here. My German ancestors who settled in central Texas grew wine from the Mustang grapes in their location. They did Mustang grape wine. It's this particular type of grape. It's really hardy in central Texas.
And we've had this discussion before. I always confuse it for Muscat when you say it.
It's different, but it's one of those native varieties that I understand why. But in like the early aughts, a University of Texas or University of Texas El Paso doctoral student decided they decided that for their dissertation they wanted to see if they could grow grapes to make wine, and they could, and that is what birthed the Texas wine industry.
I've seen videos about the Texas wine industry, and it's one of those burgeoning things.
Yeah, and it's actually really good. So some of the best Tempranillos you will ever have come from Texas. Like
it's the only style of wine that I actually like. You need to get me some.
I will. More body than the Spanish. Like it's fucking delicious.
Oh, okay. More body. See, I like this. I like Spanish Tempranillo because it is very light.
Well, I'll bring some. I mean, I will finish it, no problem. But I'll bring some so that way you can try. But it's just one of those where, you know, Texas, it blossoms in adversity. And that's kind of like the history of the state. I mean, for fuck's sake, Juneteenth started there because people lied to the people that they were enslaving. Like, people were shitty, and the newly freed folks created a celebration and decided to just keep going with it under Jim Crow. Like, some of the worst things to come out of the South came out of Texas. It's one of those where they will find a way to get around it.
All right. So annoyingly, I have to say that this I have to officially endorse Matthew McConaughey and Beto O'Rourke, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go Beto.
So the Seltzerquest's official political endorsements. Pro Matthew McConaughey, pro Gary Chambers, and pro Beto O'Rourke.
I mean, Beto is not that hard to endorse.
He's not hard to endorse, no. I don't mind him. I think he's a weird guy to run in Texas.
I mean, he was very popular in El Paso. Like, I cannot explain enough to an outsider.
El Paso's New Mexico. Let's be honest about that.
Not really. It's still different enough. But like, Beto, prior to the El Paso shootings, was so beloved through all of Texas that even some Republicans were for him until he said, yeah, just fucking take the guns. But the problem is that if you talk to most Texans, you will get them to admit that most people don't need the mostly automatic weapons, and that's where you get them.
But fine. You know what? I'm endorsing Beto O'Rourke. He's a good dude.
I mean, he actually, like, he got Willie Nelson's endorsement, like, and Willie Nelson can still pull like some big numbers for political, like.
So O'Rourke, really, McConaughey, 2020.
Oh my God,
whatever,
I wish.
Something.
All right.
Indeed.
All right, so but that's Texas. I hope you enjoyed your Devil's River Rye. It's pretty fucking great, ain't it?
It's probably the best thing we've had.
Yeah. And like I would
argue I think the Laird's 10th is maybe the best thing that I've had on.
So and that's not. I have Treaty Oak bourbon. I have and that's the other thing. Most Texas brands, like especially liquor brands, will reference some part of history. Treaty Oak gets its name from the treaty oak that, you know, it was a big live oak tree in Austin that a bunch of treaties were signed at and shit like that. So I have the Treaty Oak bourbon, Dripping Springs brand. I like their 1876 whiskey, but honestly, it has two different lines of gin, and both of those gins are probably my favorite for all-purpose gins. Like, it's a really good liquor culture down there, even in spite of everything.
Oh, for sure. Anyway, Derek, so the only thing, the reason that I say this is not my favorite thing, like, it's very good. The only reason I say that Devil's River is not my favorite thing is because it builds itself as a rye, and it doesn't taste as...
It's not overly rye. It's not an old Overholt.
What's the word?
I do love.
I feel like the word I'm looking for is chewy, and that's a weird way to describe a flavor.
So this is more easy drinking rye.
Yeah.
It's a lot more smoother of a rye, which honestly, if I could get you to have some of the bourbon, you would understand it in context of that.
Sure.
But overall, I love Texas spirits. I love Texas beer.
I will say all the Texas spirits I've had have been pretty good. Even I don't think Tito's deserves the reputation that it has, but it's not bad.
Oh no, Tito's. When I first started drinking, that was right around the time that they were starting to raise their prices. And it was okay at the price that I originally paid for it. It was like $20 for a handle.
Yeah.
Now it's almost $40. And I'm sorry, I can't. And that was after he sold out. So it is no longer the original owners.
Oh, I didn't realize Tito Beverage wasn't in charge anymore.
No. So they sold, he is still affiliated if I remember correctly, but he is no longer in charge.
See, like, I had the same experiences when I started drinking. It was pretty cheap.
Yeah, and it was good.
It's good at that price point, right? Now I think that niche is occupied by Luksuszowa, which is a Polish import, and it's made of potatoes, and it's much crisper.
If we were in Texas, I would say, fuck that, go with Deep Eddy. And that is a local I've heard
brand. Good things about Deep Eddy, but we can't get it this far north. I think
you can get the Ruby Red Grapefruit up this far north.
Really?
Yes.
I thought they distributed as far north as like Tennessee, and that's it.
No, so we used to have it at the liquor store we used to work at.
Really?
I checked.
Oh.
They stopped ordering it in as much. I can actually get it. We used to carry it at my current job.
Well, I would certainly try it out.
So I will have to see if I can find a bottle. It's way more expensive. Like, it's $16 a bottle in Texas, or at least it was when I lived there. It sells up here for like $25 because of all of the fucking fees that they have to go through. But anyways,
I like Tito's.
All right,
Tito's is great. And
yeah,
also,
like I said, it's not bad. It's just it's overrated.
I think it's better than the other options you usually have at like a mainstream bar.
Yeah.
Luksuszowa is cheaper and better.
But can I get it at the saloon?
Yeah.
Probably not, but that's
exactly.
That's because
what I'm
they
talking
don't
about.
buy
Mainstream.
All right. So, in summation, restrictive liquor laws fucking suck. It sometimes results in pretty good alcohol. Sometimes, in New Jersey's case, it doesn't.
I know.
All right. Good night, everybody.
We love you.
Hey, me again with the contact info for all you superfans and brand reps who want to send us stuff. You can slide into our DMs on Instagram at instagram.com/Seltzerquest, or you can email us at holler@seltzerquest.com. That's holler@seltzerquest.com. Stay tuned and remember, don't sniff the seltzer.